All right, ladies, I'm going to start the webinar in 2 minutes, okay? 2 minutes. I've dropped the link in the chat for the YouTube live streams, so you can share it on social media to get people joining in, tuning in there.
Good morning, good afternoon, and from wherever you are, blessed to be there.
Soraya, hold on, please. We didn't hit start yet. Hang on just a second.
The American Muslim.
Okay, we're starting now.
Thank you, Julie. Greetings, everyone. Good morning, good evening, good night. From wherever you have called in, tuned in today to listen to us. We are the American Muslim Multi-Faith Women's Empowerment Council. Together with the coalition of Muslim women's organizations, Muslim leaders, we bring to you cutting-edge discussions on the issues and events that impact our lives dearly today. You know, they say Jesus was an extremist. He was an extremist for love. Unfortunately, today, we're not going to be talking about love. We are here to talk about an extremism of a different kind. An extremism that is a threat to peace and security. My name is Soraya Dean. I am the founder of the Muslim Women Speakers, and I'm a executive member of the American Muslim Multi-Faith Women's Empowerment Council. In this hour, we're going to have a great program. We have a fabulous MC and a great line of speakers. Before we proceed, I would love to introduce to you Tomiko Dugan from the Universal Peace Federation, who will give us a few minutes of welcome. Tomiko?
Good afternoon. Can you see me? You cannot let me
You can.
show my something different. This link doesn't let me.
That's okay, Tomiko. Just speak. We can see your screen.
You can see me?
Yeah, we can see your screen. Please go ahead.
Okay. Good afternoon, Soraya. I know this is a different setting than we expected. However, in Japanese saying, it says it's too late to spill, too late to cry after the milk spilled. So therefore, we thought the unexpected treacherous storm might come in our area. So we are grateful, even though I cannot see you on the screen. However, everybody is, I believe, can listen to what I'm saying. So I'm coming from Japan, where I don't know how many of you have been to Japan. However, we say that wife who walks 3 steps behind it's considered as a wise woman. So it was natural, and at the same time, the mother holds the money in the family, not father. So in other words, we can walk 3 steps behind the husband, but however, we control the money. So this is the culture I am from. So I'm looking forward to hearing I believe 5 speakers who are coming from different culture, and this is the Ramadan, and I am so grateful for, even though I cannot see you, however, I respect your culture and tradition and incredible commitment to what you have been raised and practicing. So thank you. Once again, I am so grateful as I represent the Universal Peace Federation, which is an NGO with general consultative status with the Economic and Social Council of the United Nations. We have actually over 160 branches globally. And of course, we have offices in Bangladesh and Pakistan, in some South Asia region. So I am looking forward to working with you and hearing your thoughts and experiences. Thank you so much for inviting me, Soraya. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you, Tomiko. Our partnerships have always been very meaningful to us. And thank you also for reminding it's Ramadan, a time for peace and reflection. And as we engage in that level of soul cleansing activity and reflecting on our brothers, we must also, I believe, personally, we must give voice to challenges we face. Our moderator, Mandy Sagera, and I, we have a long friendship. And I think we are friends because we have engaged in the most difficult of all conversations. I have said sorry to her community many times. She's sick, because I remember vividly reading about how in 1675, a prominent Sikh, Guru Arjan, he martyred, and he was killed. He was really lynched because he refused to accept my faith. And also there is evidence that there were other earlier gurus who maintained cordial relationship with other Indian emperors. They consulted them. So the point that I'm trying to make is that we are not at a loss of how to make peace, but we are at a loss of leaders who will take us to making peace. We are at a loss of people who will commit to making peace. And we are at a loss of engaging women in this process of peacemaking. So let me introduce our moderator, Mandy Sagera. She's an OBE. She was just awarded the Order of the British Empire. She's an award-winning philanthropist and an international advocate, recognized as a significant catalyst for change worldwide. As a British human rights activist, motivational speaker, and TEDx presenter, she has extensively inspiring and empowering individuals in diverse nations. Critical issues such as human rights, gender equality, accountability, migration. Please welcome Mandy Sagera. Thank you.
Thank you, everybody, and welcome to this very important conversation. And I'm wars going on in the world. This is really the time to be having this conversation. I want to start with Mitra. And Mitra, I would like you to just tell us who you are, and first of all, please.
Yeah, sure. Thank you, Mandy. Thanks for having me in this incredible panel. As Mandy said, my name is Mitra Samani. I'm a board member of Women's Freedom Forum. We are an educational organization trying to educate the world about the atrocities that are happening in Iran and all around the MENA region. And I'm also a former political prisoner in Iran, and would like to share a little bit of my story. Thank you.
Thank you for that. And I would like to put you on first, because for me, it's really important that we hear from real lived experiences. For myself, who's traveled around the world 3 times and been able to support people from Afghanistan, Sudan, Ukraine, Syria, topics that are important to me. And actually, Leah and other young people today that have been visiting me, I know the real price of war and conflict on real people. So, Mitra, I'm going to pass the mic to you, and I would like you to tell us, because obviously I know you're a campaigner, you fight for women's rights. We also know a couple of years ago, things really came ahead in the media with a Asa Amini story where a young, beautiful girl was killed for not wearing a hijab. Now, I've been very clear that the hijab or the burqa should not be banned and it should not be forced. And this is where I've always stood when we stand for equal rights. But I would like to hand over to you for you to share your story now. Thank you.
Yeah, thank you so much, Mandy. As Mandy mentioned, we've known each other for a long time, and she's a very dear friend. And thank you, Mandy, for your passionate efforts to advance the cause of rights and freedom for women and girls, especially the marginalized one. I was 15 when Iran's revolution took place in 1979. On September 7th, 1981, at 5 p.m., I was abducted for distributing flyers in support of women's rights. I was in prison for 4 harrowing years in Tehran's notorious Evin prison. From the moment I arrived, I was overwhelmed by fear and shock at the brutality I witnessed. Torture began immediately. The air was filled with the ceaseless sounds of screams and flogging. Mothers with newborn infants, grandmothers in their 70s, pregnant women, and teenagers surrounded me in prison. I am forever grateful to the brave mothers and women who helped me to retain my sanity. Their guidance and their maternity-loving support saved me. Iran's fundamentalist regime could not rule without genocide. Around the country, thousands were rounded up and put in prisons. Most were high schoolers and university students. Hundreds were executed each night inside prisons. I still can hear the sounds of the coup de grace every single night. We could count often up to 200 each night, and that continued for several months. In the summer of 1988, thousands of young political prisoners, men and women, started to disappear. Prisons across the country were put on lockdown, and the authorities suspended family visits. Gradually, terrifying rumors began to circulate about mass secret executions and the dumping of bodies in unmarked mass graves. Families' worst fear were confirmed in late October of 1988, when prison visits resumed, and authorities informed many families that their loved ones had been executed. Actually, one of my cousins was in prison for 7 years, and he was one of them. However, over the last 37 years, the authorities have cruelly denied them not only a body to mourn over, but also the truth about when, how, and why their loved ones were killed, what happened to them in their last moments, and where their remains are buried. An example of a family with multiple victims is Mariam Akbari Monfared's family. Mariam, a mother of 3 daughters, was arrested in 2009, accused of enmity against God. Translation: seeking justice for the killing of her 4 siblings, 3 brothers and a sister, who were executed by the mullah's regime. Throughout her imprisonment, Mariam has endured relentless hardship. She has never been granted a single hour of furlough, not even for essential medical care or to see her 3 daughters. Despite these inhumane conditions, she has remained a powerful voice for justice. In 2016, she took the extraordinary step of filing a formal complaint from prison, demanding an investigation into the executions of her siblings. A year later, she exposed the regime's brutality in a letter to foreign ambassadors visiting Evin prison, revealing the true conditions hidden behind the authorities' facade. Her story is not just a testament to the regime's brutality, but also to the resilience of the human spirit. As she herself wrote, and I quote, "One day I will sing the song of victory from the mountaintop like the sun," unquote. Mariam's continued imprisonment is not just an attack on her, it is an attack on all who dare to seek justice in Iran. Yet, as she remains behind bars, she's proving that the regime has failed to silence her for more than 5,500 days and counting. Amidst the Iranian people's increasing dissent, we are witnessing an incredible growth in women's participation and leadership that is very inspiring. Case in point is the women prisoners with their weekly hunger strike on Tuesdays, demanding an end to regime's executions. It is called No to Execution Tuesdays. And last Tuesday was the 59th week of it. It is happening in 38 prisons all around Iran. They too have become another source of inspiration to the people of Iran, especially to women and girls. Hence, we are witnessing a major uptake in women protesting to bring about an end to this tyrannical regime. Iranian women have learned where their bright future lies. It's through leadership and resisting the Islamic fundamentalist fascism of Iran's mullah and the brutal suppressive entities inside Iran and around the globe. The famous slogan the world has come to know now is "Woman, Resistance, Freedom," as we hear it from women's prison wards echoing all around Iran. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Mitra. It is so powerful to hear from you. And I just want people to know that actually women's rights are human rights, as Hillary Clinton says. As we are now celebrating Beijing 30, we're now looking at all those atrocities and how we move forward. I'm now going to come to you, Lima. And obviously, you're somebody that we evacuated out of Afghanistan. And actually, you have your own extremism in your own country. It would be good for you to tell us a little bit about who you are and what is happening today in Afghanistan.
Thank you so much, Mandy. Thank you, Soraya, and everyone who put the force to arrange this event. I think it's really important to share the common risks and threats that we women from Muslim countries are facing. So this is Lema Anwari. I'm a youth activist and also a human rights advocate from Afghanistan. I was evacuated to the US after 2021, the political change that happened in Afghanistan. So it's actually an honor for me also to speak on an issue that is not just threat to Afghanistan, but I would say this is a threat to global peace and security. So the rise of this extremism and the dangerous consequences of legitimizing regimes that thrive on oppressions. I want to focus more on 3 things, which is the Taliban's system of gender apartheid as a form of extremism, the rapid expansion of the madrasas and its impact on the next generation, And the last point, that why normalizing the Taliban emboldens extremism beyond Afghanistan. The first thing, the Taliban's the gender apartheid, which is a direct threat to peace.
Okay.
And when we talk about the extremism, so we often think of violence and terrorism. But extremism, that's actually not just about bombs and battlefields. It's about ideology. It's about erasing human rights, silencing them, and normalizing oppressions. So the Taliban role is one of the clearest example of this risk. And under their regime, so women are not just second-class citizens, but they are being totally erased from the society. Right now in Afghanistan, so women are banned from education, from employment, and from the public, from freedom. So they are actually in-home prisoners. And this is not a culture thing, and this is not related to Islam. This is a systematic state-enforced policy of gender apartheid. And why does this matter beyond Afghanistan? Because history has shown us that wherever women's rights are crushed, extremism is there. The Taliban are not just suppressing, fueling other extremist groups who see the Taliban as a model of success. The second thing that I want to somehow talk about is that's the expansion of madrasas, which is a silent war on the future, which is a really alarming developments under the Taliban rule. Religious schools, which is they call it as a madrasas, and that is somehow Taliban want to deliver to the next generation. In 2023, the Taliban established over 21,000 new madrasas across Afghanistan. By contrast, only 106 regular schools were built in the same period in 2023. So these madrasas are not simply place of like religion studies, but they are designed to indoctrinate young minds with extremist ideologies and glorify jihad and erase formal education. And the impact, we already seeing it. There is a survey that has done by the Drops. Drops is another Afghan women-led organization. And within this survey, they found out that 39% of Afghan women reported that girls attending these madrasas, now they wish to observe the full hijab, which is defined by the Taliban. And even inside their houses, they want to be fully covered. With this reflects a deep societal shift, one where these young girls are being taught that their role is just to submit, and they should reject the freedoms. And there was a time that the mother of these girls, they were fighting for freedom. So we see this, the consequences of these madrasas in our today's life among the young generation. And this is not just an education crisis, this is a long-term security crisis. The Taliban are not just ruling Afghanistan today, they are preparing the next generation to carry their ideology forward. If this trend continues unchecked, Afghanistan will not only remain as a safe haven for extremism, it will become an exporter of it as well. The last thing that I want to make your attention is that the cost of the normalizing the Taliban. We have to be clear that every meeting, every handshake, every legitimization of the Taliban emboldens not just them, but extremist movements worldwide. If the Taliban can get away with crushing half of the population without consequences, what message does this send to the other oppression regimes and extremist groups? We are already seeing the consequences. The Taliban's rule has provided a safe haven for terrorist organizations like Al-Qaeda. But the threat is not limited to Afghanistan. The ideology they promote, the systematic subjection of women, the rejection of democracy, and the use of fear to govern is gaining traction beyond the borders. We cannot afford to be silent.
Lima, one quick question. So in madrasas, people are looking at this and thinking this is education. As we know, in Islam, the first principles is about to be educated, to gain knowledge. I'm not a Muslim, but I know those principles. And to me, when girls are not at school, not allowed to learn, we cannot even hear their voices. These are not principles of Islam. Now, you know, you have a very good understanding of Islam. I know that you have read and you are very well observed with Islam. And I would just quickly, in the next minute, if you could just give us a bit about history, because obviously we know about Khadija was a businesswoman who in her time was leading the way. We know about Aisha was educated. So how are these values of Islam not being practiced by people who claim to be religious? Please, if you could answer that.
Sure. Thank you so much for this question. Actually, so we are all the time stating that whatever the Taliban is committing inside Afghanistan, that is totally against the Islamic principles and values. In Islam, the important thing is towards women, children, elder people. But the Taliban, again, torturing these women, killing the people and beating them. Why? Because they are the women who are stood against the Taliban's this very mentality and ideology, which is against the Islam. The Islam, as you already mentioned, like Islam educated us. Islam give us the right to education, to stand up, to work for justice, for the peace. And the Islam, even the Prophet said many times, the best of you is the one who is having the best behavior with the women of the society. So, but the Taliban, in against those all values, they are committing all these injustices and also, I would say, crimes against humanity, because that is a systematic oppression of women in every aspect of the life from the society. Whatever the Taliban is doing, they believe in control. They believe in extremism. It's all about from their extremist ideas, and they want to use the power and just they need the women to be inside the houses. They don't want women to work, to go to the schools, to the formal education system, which was universities, schools, and other academic platforms. But all they want is the woman to be inside the houses and just serve them and never say against their voices. So nothing of these actions is rooted in Islam, and it has nothing to do with Islam, with our Afghan culture, but it is all with the Taliban's ideology and their mentality. That's why we are all the time, the Afghan women, we in different international platforms, we are trying to share this narrative that the narrative that the Taliban are using and excusing an international community is also saying that it is your internal matter. No, it is not Afghanistan's internal matter. That is totally something against culture, against Islam, against international values. So that's why we are calling on the world that if you have two things, either to be silent and look away, or you stand with Afghan women to make a mistake and not ignore this threat today. If you ignore it, it will come knocking on your doors tomorrow as well. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you, Alima. Very insightful and very important points. Zeba, I'm going to come to you. Obviously, you now live in the UK and originally from Bangladesh. We have seen a lot of things in the media from Bangladesh recently with Sheikh Hasina actually now leaving. And actually, you know, Bangladesh has been a country where we've had a woman in power for a very long time. And actually, we always want to have women in leadership. But actually, you know, it's interesting and it'd be good to hear some of your points of view as well. Thank you.
Thank you, Mandy. Assalamu alaikum, shalom, and namaskar to everyone. And this is a month of Holy Ramadan. Today, our discussion about rising of extremism and which is a threat of women, peace, and security is not only about Afghanistan, Iran, or Bangladesh or Pakistan. or India. I am very much concerned about what's going on our homeland. We are living here as an immigrant, a first generation immigrant. We leave behind our old country to adopt the Westernized culture and as well as follow our religious value and cultural value. And this is a wonderful country. So I start with few my personal experience recently, and also I connect with that Bangladesh, what's going on in Bangladesh. Recently, I visited New York. 10 days I stayed with our community. Since I'm a community organizer and I have to check on my community, they invited me. So I attended so many iftar. I talked to a lot of men and women and young crowd. So I started with one thing. Now is Ramadan. In daylight, we shouldn't eat. If whoever fasting is not for everyone. So one day, one of my family friend, I didn't fast that day. She took me. She's telling to another lady, I'm taking Zeba to restaurant to feed her for lunch. Then one of the ladies, she's an older lady, don't take her to the restaurant because people will say bad. She's not fasting. Then my family friend, she could be sick. She could have, women issues. So why not? No, don't take her to the. I shouldn't eat in the restaurant. This is USA in the heart of New York. This is the one thing. So yesterday night I was looking at the social media. Then I got one of the news. 2 young students, female students, they were beaten up in a local tea stall in Bangladesh, in Dhaka city. Why they were beaten up? Because 2 young lady, they were drinking tea in daytime. So some young goon came and harassed them and beat them up, and people was saying that those boys did the good thing to harass those girls. Then I find out another very disturbing thing. There's a many religious group, 53, 54. So one of the largest religious group is called Jamaat Islami. They are really one of the old group. They have branches all over the world, like Pakistan, India, other places. So chief of Jamaat Islami urges all the restaurants owner to shut the restaurant in the daytime. But there is a 20%, 10 to 20% non-Muslim people. So a sick person might need a food. A pregnant woman might need food. Not everybody can fast. So this is, I think, violating of human rights.
Yeah, and we understand that. And I think, religion is a very personal thing for people. And there are some people, like you said, and you know what? We should be good people all year round, not for 30 days, once a year. So I think that is really important about, your values. So I just wanted to ask you about, the work that you're doing around extremism. Could you just quickly give us a few examples of what you're doing now in the United States?
Mostly we are, going to different community, whether it's a Pakistani community, Indian community. We talk to majority women leaders. There's a lot of women leaders, women business owners, and also families, obviously friends and relatives and friends of friends. We are trying to person communication, because we are not importing extremism from Afghanistan, Bangladesh, Pakistan. We are also cultivating extremism in our own land, our own homeland, because we looked over so many years. If you study 9/11, that was the wake-up call for the whole Muslim, that 9/11 was set for our Islam, our Islamic values and our Muslim identity. And moving forward, I was UCI student. I finished my school 2007. I don't know you recall that Irvine 11. That was the red flag, Irvine 11. The student protest, Irvine 11, and it was in 2010. 2010, that was the one of the red flag. And we look over these kind of activities again and again. That thing we didn't take care of. We didn't discipline our children. And look at what's going on the college campuses. Extremism shatter a lot of dreams. So many, these kids are young, they go by the flow, and they're losing their, student visa. It takes a lot of effort to send children, to raise the children, and sending to the foreign country for higher education. This children could be serve the world, get the best education in USA, serve their family, serve themselves, and a lot of dreams shattered. And it's also spread fear. So we are talking, we are building the awareness. And also one thing is disturbing about the community leaders. Those leaders, they have been working for the long time. They give us a lot of, since I'm a Muslim, I'm going to talk about the Muslim community. So they don't want to send their children to regular education, conventional education. They wanted to send them to Islamic education. They wanted to homeschooling them. They don't want, because USA is a multicultural society, one of the diverse society. In New York is a, like that, because all the country you can get there. So a lot of my age group
I'm going to come back to you again in a minute. I just wanted to thank you for interesting points about your work, and well done for keeping up that good work. Soraya, I'm going to come to you. You and I have had a lot of conversations, and I know that you're from Sri Lanka, but actually recently we have heard from Saudi around the hadiths, and actually a kind of questioning that actually so is to educate people to move with the times and to be doing that, because actually I've had a lot of conversations with a lot of people from the Arab states in the Middle East, and I know that you and Anila do a lot of good work in the Middle East, and we're looking at trying to bring peace. I think that there is a question to be had and to discuss things with people, because I think people don't always understand that there's a very fine line between religion and culture. And whether we see child marriage is not, or we see FGM, all these practices that are happening, they're not religious, these are cultural, out-of-date practices that we need to talk about and address. So it would just be good to hear about some of your work and some of your thoughts, Soraya, and if you let people know who you are as well. Thank you.
Thank you, Mandy. I am, because of the want of time, I'll quickly go into some perspectives. As a Sri Lankan, I don't know how many people know where Sri Lanka is. It's a little island with 22 million people. About 9% of us are Muslims there. It's a large majority of Buddhist population of 70. On April 21st, 2019, it was Easter Sunday. A man who had gone early morning to pray in the mosque in a motor bicycle, it was all taken in footage, drove his bike, went to the Christian church, the Zion church, where it was Easter celebration. 29 children were outside having their meal before the service began. He blew himself up and killed all 20. And sporadic attacks took place all across Sri Lanka, where we lost 240 people. So this violent extremism that we are talking about today is pervasive, and it has not spared Sri Lanka, a little beautiful island. So as a Muslim woman, in clear response to what you have asked me, I think the Saudi king is trying very valiantly to reset the button. We know for a long time a warped ideology, an ideology that was devoid of context, but full of text that was delivered, that was revealed 1400 years ago, has been preached and taught. Even to this date, I live in the United States. None of our religious actors have raised their voices to discern between religion, faith, and the scripture. There has to be critical discussions on this, and to this date we have not had it. So that is why we see this level of extremism coming up from certain quarters. And my heart breaks when I heard what Lima and Mitra had to say, to really think that these women, these friends, these sisters of mine, and their sisters are currently going through this, is very painful to me. And that is why we are raising the voices. So I think the Saudi king has a sacred duty. Some of the theologies that were taught that had Wahhabist roots has caused a lot of damage in the Muslim world. And I think the king is in the right direction, and he's going to take us. But my message as always is that we have work to do at the grassroots level. We women have to go into these places and question these iniquities, this discrimination, this level of depravity and the violation of human rights. Thank you, Mandy.
Thank you for that. And Anila, I'm going to come to you. Obviously, you have been a great outspoken advocate and campaigner, and a lot of kudos to you for the work that you have been doing, and you have been very outspoken since October the 7th, and I know that you have done a lot of work previously as well. And I think sometimes, you know what, people have to be the change, and we have to stand up and speak up on things. And and it is about calling out your own community. For me, there's people that are extreme in my own community, whether it's Sikhism and Hinduism, and people are now trying to do this. And the problem is, even in America, I'm meeting so many people that are going so far to the right, and even in the UK. And how do we bring people back to the center, and how do we do that? And it would be great to hear about your work and what else you've been doing as well, Anila, and over to you.
Thank you, Mandy, and assalamu alaikum, hello, shalom, namaste to everyone who's watching us. This is my request to all women around the world who are listening to us. We need to join hands. And some of the reasons why it's so important for Muslim women to also speak up, like my sisters are here, and women, is because this war is on us too. It's not just on the infidel, it is not just on the kuffar, it is on women. Now, imagine that growing up, having my kids grow up in America after 9/11. I would go to many mosques and I would hear things in the Jummah, the Friday sermons, where the Arabic, most of the time it was an Arabic imam who would at the end of it pray and say, "Oh Allah, completely destroy and shatter the Jews. Oh Allah, torment them with a disease that has no cure or remedy. Send a thunderbolt down upon them from heaven, oh Allah." And I don't want to go on, because this vile prayer and many variations of it are what I heard after 9/11. Did people check on them, on our own government and our own Muslims who had a responsibility to do that? This is calling for violence and Allah's wrath on the Jews, Ahle Kitab, people of the book, the people that gave Prophet of Islam, peace be upon him, refuge, the Jews and Christians. We're calling on Allah. Where did we get that? And Mandy, you have a lot of my sisters from South Asia. I had never heard of anti-Semitism. And I'm so glad that I hadn't, because at least half of my life, I grew up without the name of this cancer. This cancer has spread. It has now become, endemic everywhere. And we are not acknowledging how it came into our society, how it's permeated our children's minds here in America and of course in the UK. It's through sermons like that. It's through the ideology of Islamism, the Islamists, okay, that have infiltrated American politics. Of course, they are all over the European countries. We know they were there in the UK. I grew up, I saw them, the sermons the same way. They took a turn to the radical, and I know I stopped going to the mosque. I said, no. And my father said, no, I don't want to take my children there on. And we only went there on Eid. What was happening in the UK started happening in America right after 9/11. 9/11 itself, we must remember, was inspired by all of these kinds of radical Islamists who are now, they are walking around like they own the West. Organizations like CARE, organizations like ISNA, they have openly and they have harassed and intimidated Muslims who are speaking out, Muslim women who are daring to take them on. They silenced us. And let me tell you, for those of you who don't know the extent of the damage they have done, this is their leader. His name is Sayyid Qutb. Okay, he died in 1966 after doing extensive damage to Islam and the Muslim world, and indeed our lives here. The theory is a Muslim has no country except that part of the earth where Sharia of God is established and human relationships are based on the foundation of relationship with God. A Muslim has no nationality except his belief, which makes him a member of the Muslim community in Darul Islam, the Muslim world, right? A Muslim has no relatives except those who share the belief in God. And notice that that's a direct attack on relatives, the Jews and the Christians, right? So there's that hidden anti-Semitism, hidden Christian persecution and attack. And then this is reference to what's happening in Gaza. People ask me, like, are all Gazan mothers, like, do they all want their kids to become jihadis and sacrifice them in the name of Islam? This is the radical theory of Sayyid Qutb. A Muslim has no relationship with his mother, father, brother, wife, and other family members, except through their relationship with the Creator. And then they are also joined by blood. When that happens, a Muslim can have two relationships, right? With Darul Harb, which they call the West, and then with, with Allah, okay? And that relationship is only by war, okay? And a country that is subservient to Western values, the Muslim Brotherhood thinks, is not a home of Islam. But what happened was these people started spewing this hate in our mosques in America under the guise of civil rights. All of these organizations, whether it be, Helping Hands, Islamic Relief USA, CARE, a lot of these organizations that we've been battling for years and years, they follow that ideology. They told us so many times, where I, as just mother, concerned, responsible Muslim American mother, I walked up to the leaders and I said, listen, you don't like the state of Israel and you don't like Jews, but when I come to the mosque, I come as an American Muslim. Do not, implicate my kids in your unholy war. I was so open to them and I fought with them. But they are the ones who are getting millions and millions and trillions of dollars. You may have seen a post in New York Post yesterday about one of our Pakistani sisters, who again was like me and you and all of us, a normal Muslim. She came to America to live like an American Muslim. And she found that the head of the Council on American Islamic Relations, not only was he discriminatory with Muslims who are non-Arabs, he was discriminatory towards Blacks, LGBTQ, and he had only hired a lot of these people to show that he truly is a civil rights leader. And then to top it all up, he asked my sister, Pakistani young girl with a hijab, Lori, for a sexual favor. We begged media, the left-wing media in America, take the story on. This is the root of evil. Anti-Semitism is the symptom of it. We're all going to have this cancer of radical Islam. Unfortunately, this organization and organizations like that operating in the UK and the rest of the world, they are Muslim Brotherhood. And you and I won't be able to tackle them unless our governments come forward and give voice to the moderate Muslims who are standing up and talking about this very dangerous ideology that wants to devour our freedoms everywhere. They want to establish a caliphate. And I read somewhere what they think of women. What they want is women to be like the virgins that they will find, pure, untouched. And one guy who did the shooting, this terrorist who did the shooting of Fort Hood, if you all remember, he had asked a Muslim matchmaker to find him a pure Muslim woman who prayed 5 times a day, completely subservient to the husband, never saw a man in her life, and he had all these criterias, and he rejected 150 pious women because he could not find the pious one that Muslim Brotherhood had brainwashed. Sayyid Qutb had brainwashed him to find. And let me also go back to my Afghan sister who's here and who her country and my country is suffering. And so is the Muslim world, because this is a cancer, the cancer of hate, anti-Semitism, Christian persecution, hating the Hindus, hating the Sikhs because they are kuffar. This is Al-Qaeda. So you see, if we can go back to 9/11 and say, okay, you know, Osama's gone. Osama himself was inspired by this evil guy, Sayyid Qutb, who wrote this somewhere in 1940s, you know, and the Arabs were sort of dealing with the Second World War, the First World War, and finding their own identity. Radical Islam tends to grow. And what is the first attack? They attack women and they attack minorities. And as Islam was becoming, you know, political and militant, and a lot of Christians in the post-Spain era, if you remember that area, that part of our history, they were forced to convert to Islam. And once they converted to Islam, the Christians, majority of them being the Arab Christians, they came to the Arab world. What did they come with? The blood libel. The Jews are responsible for everything. The Jews are like this. Everything is blamed on Jews. Even when the weather is bad, we blame it on Jews. But we never take a look at ourselves and our behaviors. Are we following Islam? I want to say today and end, Mandy, by saying Islam is not Islamism, and a Muslim is not Islamist. If we don't, as South Asians, as people of the river Indus, we haven't come from the deserts. We have come from a civilization that stood strong. I remember Buddha came there, Rumi came there. That's the culture and civilization we come from. We need to take the Muslim narrative back from these people. And I know that many of my sisters here on this call will join me. We need to have a Shura Council in America that is devoid of these Islamists, that has no connection to the Sayyid Qutb, the Muslim Brotherhood theories, Al-Qaeda, Daesh, ISIL, because they want to destroy not just our country here in America and the West. They want to destroy Islam.
Thank you, Anila, very powerful. And I'm now going to be coming to all of the panelists for the last 1 minute call with a call for action. But one of the things that I've picked up on here from you, Anila, is that actually, you know, we have to have an honest conversation. We started with Iran. We need to be looking at the head of the snake, almost, so to speak. We're looking at places like Lebanon that has now Hezbollah. We have the Houthis who are, you know, in Yemen, where there is so much in Yemen. People do not even have meals, but yet they have some of the best weapons in the world. People in Syria, we've seen people in Hamas and everywhere else. And we need to be having very honest conversations around this. And I think that, you know, for me, it's the greatest threat in the Middle East today is not a Jewish state, but actually Iran. And I've been very outspoken about this for 20 years. And it's not about the wars and the conflicts, but actually the women's violations, the children being imprisoned, and people not having rights. Now, I will always defend anyone's right to wear a hijab or whatever they want to practice. That's your choice, but it cannot be forced. We cannot have mullahs and the Taliban in madrasas trying to educate and radicalize. We need to have very honest conversations. So, Mitra, I'm coming to you for your final thought. And if everyone can keep these down to a minute, please, so then we can take a question or two. Thank you. So, Mitra, over to you.
Yeah, thank you, Mandy. Yeah, you talked about the head of the snake. The head of the snake, you're right, is Iranian regime. Actually, since Khomeini came to power in Iran, that's what we see, all these extremist ideologies all around the world, especially the Middle East, just like it was like spreading all over. To me, actually, one thing is very important, that the US and all Western countries, that's something that I really want them to do, that they have to stop their relationship with the Iranian regime and acknowledge the Iranian people's struggle, for freedom and democracy. There is an organized resistance movement called National Council of Resistance of Iran. They are at the forefront of this fight. They have resistance units that hundreds of them that are fighting this extremism that we all hear here in this panel. They have to halt their relationship with this regime. Although condemning it, it's necessary. The gross human rights violation and the spreading of terrorism all around the world. But they have to stop the relationship in one condition: stop arresting, torturing, and executing people in Iran. In 2024 alone, more than 1,000 people has been executed in Iran. It's like every 3-4 hours, one person has been executed, So this is something that I have in mind personally, because I experienced those dungeons in Iran, and nobody should experience the things that Iranian people, especially Iranian women and girls, are going through because they consider us second-class citizens. Thank you, Mandy.
Thank you for that. And I think that, it is so important that we have these honest conversations and we look at, educating. But I do want to make the point about sanctions, because actually it's the poor, innocent people of Iran that suffer when we put sanctions. And sometimes, whether in the Taliban, they are getting money through the back door. And Lima, over to you for a minute for a final thought.
Thank you, Mandy. So I have four short recommendations. I'm asking on the international community a coordinated global response, that they must stop legitimizing the Taliban through unconditioned engagement, and instead they can impose strict consequences for their continued violation of human rights. A halt to extremist interdoctrinate. The international community must monitor, expose, and counter the Taliban's expansion of these madrasas, which is being used to radicalize the young minds. My third call would be support for Afghan civil society. So we must invest in Afghan-led organizations, activists, and underground networks that are keeping the fight for democracy and human rights alive. And the last request would be from the region. So since the Afghan women and the youth groups and the journalists, they are suffering not only inside Afghanistan, but beyond Afghanistan in the neighboring countries as well. So I would be asking for protection for those at risk. And the countries, they should help with the expedite resettlement for Afghan women, journalists, and human rights defenders. Thank you.
Thank you very much. I really like it. And Zeba, over to you for a final 1 minute quote.
Thank you so much. My main concern is homeland security. I like our elected official. America is a great country. We have to be a little bit control over the immigration issues. And one of the problem is other Muslim countries, the bad governance, the corruption governance, they first doing their country and they come to this country with those corrupt money. So our US government have to be watch over whoever coming with this corrupt money, and those corrupt money, black money using for all this extremism. So whom you are giving the asylum, who is political leader, which political official, which is the official you are harboring here in USA. So those terrorism is part of corruption related. These are all interrelated. So we have to focus on our own peace and security, and women are also getting harassed over here. So this is my request to all the stakeholders, government, civil society, Muslim leaders, if you want to save your Islam, save the Islam for the Islamists. Thank you, everyone.
Thank you very much. And Soraya, finally to you for 1 minute.
Mandy, the core condition of the Muslim world today is willful stagnation. We have religious actors who are sponsored by these endowments. They sit in high places at Ivy League colleges, and they want to maintain this stagnation. And then we have religious actors who are preachers, who are preaching absolute hate from the mosques. So what do we need to do? There's so much, but I'm going to first address that Muslim Brotherhood has to be banned in the United States, because Hamas is an Muslim Brotherhood, And it's a global movement that treats the Quran as an uncompromising political document with little room for pluralism or debate. So what Muslims have failed to do, especially in Afghanistan, Pakistan, in Bangladesh, in Iran, we have failed to renew interpretive boldness in our texts, because fundamentalism springs from ignorance. So what we have done is such an injustice to Islam, and those of us who speak up, we are accused of being Islamophobic. And there is no word such as Islamophobia, because every religion has to be subjected to criticism and discussion and debate. So we must hear the word differently, Mandy, for each generation. Give meaning for each generation. False claims that I have the final word, that I don't need to think anymore. That's what it comes to. And when people say I have the truth is in my pocket, we deny discussion. So what I would like to conclude by saying to young girls who are everywhere, you have to understand there's not one true version of Islam. Traditional Islamic history has little or no validity. It has zero validity. Islam is our faith, and Islamism is a political ideology lacking theological, historical, and philosophical and scientific validity, and falls short of internationally agreed standards of equality, democracy, justice, and human rights. Thank you.
Thank you, Anila. Thank you. Sorry. Anila, over to you for your final thought for a minute.
Thank you. Thank you, Mandy, for putting this together. I call for everyone in America and outside of America, because this is an international terrorist organization that we're dealing with, to call for an investigation on the Council on American Islamic Relations. I also call our present government, President Trump, who really has gone all out to combat Islamists. I want us to have more oversights on nonprofits. That includes all the mosques that we have, that organizations that have been, they just spring up on the political action committees that have been funding the Islamists in government. Yes, who are the Islamists in our US government? It would be the two names that pop to my mind who have taken care political action committee money. It is Ilhan Omar and Rashida Tlaib. I call for an investigation. I call for better oversight into all of these nonprofits and the funding. So let's ask for our US government and those concerned about Islamism, track the money, find who's funding it and stop it, because it may not cut the head of the snake, but it'll definitely damage it. And in that time, we can take a reprieve. And hopefully my moderate Muslims, wherever you are, you will wake up and you will think of the future of your kids that are living here in America. And I'm sure that all of us are going to be buried in the land that we're living on, which is sacred to us. So God bless everyone and God bless America. Thank you for putting this together.
Thank you, Anila. I'm going to come to Julie for a final thought in a minute, and I'm just going to say thank you to all the panelists. And I think, the first thing that we just need to think about is that we belong to one race, and it's called human. And one of the other things is that, women have to have a seat at the decision-making table. They need to be heard. We need to hear from real survivors and victims to tell their stories. And then when we're talking to politicians or to leaders, that actually they are listening to those real voices. And, it is very sad to see how things have evolved since September the 11th. I grew up in the UK in the 70s and the 80s. You couldn't even tell a difference between a Pakistani or a Punjabi or a Hindu lady. They wore saris or they wore salwar kameez, but actually looked very different. And there's nothing wrong with people wanting to hold on to their culture, and you should be very proud of your culture. But actually, we should not be forcing our beliefs and our ideology onto the next generation. So my call is that we have women at the decision-making table. that actually we unite together and actually look at bringing peace. We cannot hate a whole group of individuals because they believe to a different God to you, because that is our values of being a human and standing up for what is right. So I'm now going to come to you, Julie, to close this event with your final thoughts, and thank you for coordinating and putting this together.
Thank you so much. And thank you to each of the panelists for joining us today. And on behalf of the American Muslim and Multi-Faith Women's Empowerment Council, I also wanted to thank our partner organizations, Muslim Women Speakers, NIBAF, and the Universal Peace Federation for helping us put this together. I just wanted to encourage everyone in closing to follow each of the speakers on social media. You can follow our organization on social media as well. And please help to amplify the messaging and the things that you heard today by sharing this program as well. Thank you again to each of you, and may you have a happy rest of the weekend.
Thank you.
Thank
Was
you,
there any
Julie.
questions that were people